This is a P.A.S. Report podcast sound clip. Listen to the full episode by going to the PASreport.com, iTunes, or any major podcast platform.
First, I'm just going to take their simple premise of how they do their research. They argue that 44 convictions out of 1 billion ballots casted equals the 0.000044% of voter fraud. So 44 convictions out of 1 billion ballots casted. And of course, they don't really provide an answer as to what led them to this conclusion, because what they're doing is they're taking one person and one vote mindset, and that doesn't work. It assumes that the one person convicted only tampered with one ballot. That's what it assumes. Well, in a little, I'm going to show you a case, I'm going to explain to you a case where one person may have been responsible for manipulating up to 1,000 votes, 1,000 ballots. So you can't sit there and take the 44 convictions out of 1 billion ballots. It just simply doesn't work. Also, while the left is right that we've seen very little in the way of prosecutions and convictions when it comes to voter fraud, here's the thing, you kind of got to find the fraud first. It's not that easy. Let's face it, those that want to commit voter fraud, it's not like they're walking into a police station and admitting that they committed voter fraud. They want to get away with it. And we don't just start investigations without any complaints or accusations or evidence emerging. You have to bring it to the attention of law enforcement when fraud exists. Well, what happens when the fraud is committed from the inside? And what happens when the fraud is being conducted by those that are counting the ballots? See, that's a big problem that they never account for. So there's a fraud that goes on that does go undetected. Now, does it mean that we could manipulate every election and that fraud is done all the time and that every election has to be suspect, that we have to question it? And the answer is no. It doesn't mean that. But what I am saying is that we rarely scrutinize the results of an election. The only time we actually put any real scrutiny to the results of the election is if the election is extraordinarily close. That's when we'll start examining whether or not fraud took place.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast. Be sure to rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Also, visit PASreport.com and follow us on Twitter at PAS Report.